Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit. Well, how are you guys?
Yeah, it's
good.
it's continuing to be grey and wet, cold.
Yep.
Welcome to England.
Yeah. And Ohio.
Literally counting down the days now until it's March and the weather starts to warm up a bit. 24 to go. Come on. Ticking them off as we go. I can see the sunshine coming in your window, Neil, so I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, did you go to the beach today, Neil?
It's fucking 80 degrees out. It's ridiculous.
Do you ever not wear shorts?
I'm for work. I'm actually still in my polo, and yeah, I'm wearing pants. But would I rather?
Thank
wear
God you're wearing
shorts to work?
pants.
Thank God
Thank
you're wearing
God you're
pants.
wearing
as opposed to shorts.
Or
Okay,
anything.
yeah.
I mean, what's behind that guitar?
I know, right?
Well, this has taken a turn early.
Yeah, that's about how it goes. That is about how it goes. Yeah, so NAMM.
One of us went to NAMM.
One of us went to NAMM.
It wasn't me.
I wish you guys could have come.
I'm planning on coming next year.
I think you should.
We're trying to line it up.
I really do, and I'm not not even
What are the dates?
they've published
January.
them already. January. Yeah, it's you can look on NAMM.org and they have the dates already published and everything.
Keep talking. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, I think that you should go, and we'll get into this further on in the episode. But I think everybody who is even who's a musician, whether or not you're in the pro audio industry or anything, if you're a musician, I think you should be there. If you're in an audio or music adjacent career, you should be there. Case in point, I had a really great conversation with the Sensophonics people and in their booth, and in the process of getting some molds done for my new earplugs and IEM sleeves. Made a new connection with some folks at Sensophonics. They have a podcast. And so we're going to do some cross-podcast episodes with the folks at Sensophonics. So,
Nice.
that's really cool. And that was something that I didn't expect to happen at all. And in fact, I didn't even, in all of the weeks of preparation of seeing what vendors were going to be there and where I was going to spend time, I didn't even see Sensophonics on the list. I wouldn't even think to look for them. But you know what? They're audio adjacent, right? And so I think that people in those audio adjacent, industries should absolutely consider going to NAMM because it's just fantastic. And there's connections to be made and there's things to learn. One thing they did new this year for 2025 was they did a bunch of pre-show seminars and sessions where it's basically 2 days of learning. Basically. And that was really cool because you got a chance to not walk around the show floor. That wasn't open until Thursday. But Tuesday and Wednesday, you got a chance to walk around the convention center itself and just sit in seminars and listen and learn and ask questions and network. And that was worth the price of a membership alone. And it's members only. It's only open to NAMM members, so the general public isn't able to go to these, which is nice because then it would just get super jam-packed. It was already pretty jam-packed in some sessions.
It looks like they're doing that again next year because the events are the 20th to the 24th of January, but the exhibits are only the 22nd to the 24th.
Yes, so they're doing, and it was a hit. That was the first time they did that, and I think the immediate feedback they got after even the first day was, do it again. And that was what I told them when I came back and filled out the questionnaire that they send after the event is absolutely do more of those sessions and seminars. That was
so how
worth
many
it.
How can I ask this question? How many days do you think you need to be at NAMM? Because it's quite a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot. And I went out a few days early, which turned out to be probably 2 days too long for me. So this year the sessions started on Tuesday. I would say I didn't feel the need to go to the sessions on Tuesday. They weren't anything. They weren't quite anything that I thought I needed to attend. But I would go next year to 2 days of sessions. So I would say if the events start on Tuesday, fly in there, late Monday, or if you're doing a red eye flight.
On Monday? Wait.
No, it starts on a Tuesday. I think it starts Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Let's see, the 22nd of January 20.
I'm just thinking because
it starts on a Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
with the very long suffering Mrs. Holmes might come to California.
Well, yeah.
And then we can make a bigger thing of it. But I do need to be able to say, I'm only going to be there for a couple of days, Mrs. Holmes. I'm not about to desert you for 5 days out of our California trip.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Because she'll love that. I'm not dragging her around a music event either, because she won't love that.
No. And it's not a place that you would want to bring anyone who doesn't want to be there.
No.
I saw a couple people with their kids there, and I was just like, and they were all, it's so crazy
and loud.
in the show floor, and loud. And it's, even for somebody who might not consider themselves to be easily overstimulated, it is very easy to be overstimulated in that place.
So I've only got like 3 questions about NAMM. I want to know who you talked to.
Yes.
Right.
I want to know what the best thing you saw was.
Okay.
I want to know what you bought, because I cannot believe you came back from NAMM without buying anything. I know you. Something got brought home.
You know me, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the answer to those questions and more on this episode of Sound Discussion, the NAMM episode.
Hello, and welcome to Sound Discussion. Each episode, we discuss a music topic which we have all had first-hand experience with. These will be anything from getting started, recording, playing live, mixing, mastering, and everything in between. Most episodes will have a special guest to bring their professional experience to the discussion. Let's get started.
How did you know I bought something? I mean,
honestly,
I bought I bought the earplugs.
Oh yeah, but the earplugs. So genuinely, that's going to be a really interesting discussion about hearing protection and
it really will be.
Because I would imagine everyone at NAMM is wearing hearing protection, right? Because if not, you are insane.
I don't know. I mean, the sort of standing, not rule, but just sort of guideline is, if you're going to walk on the show floor and and your hearing is worth it to you, absolutely wear hearing protection. But I saw plenty of people appearing to not wear hearing protection. I had hearing protection on the entire time, at least in the instrument areas. Yeah. The pro audio floor was much more calm and quiet. That's tolerable. But like if you're over in the main hall, and the main hall is like
drums, guitars.
It's everything. Yeah, it's literally one giant space, and it's in sections. You got guitars on the far end, and then basses, and then drums, and then percussion, and then brass and woodwinds and all that stuff, and then like synthesizers and DJ, and it's all in one giant place. Like, I mean, I don't know how many football fields it is, but it is many, many football fields.
Yeah. Wow.
It is insanity.
Just ends up being the Strip in Nashville on a Saturday night.
Oh, yeah, right. You're walking from bar to bar, and you just hear this cacophony of drums and guitars and bass, and it's just a mess. That is NAMM.
That is NAMM.
One of them. Yeah. It is like walking down Broadway, because you're bumping into people and squeezing by, and
there's music everywhere around every corner.
So to answer Ben's question, yes, I did buy some stuff at NAMM. I went to the Sensophonics booth, like I said. I got I got some new molds done for musicians' plugs and for my in-ear monitors. So I'm waiting for those to be made and shipped. So that's fantastic. And what's really cool is, if you do end up buying something at NAMM, you often get an insider price because you're at the trade show. There's no tax in most cases, I would say. And, in a lot of cases, like with the equipment that I bought, there was no shipping because I put it in my carry-on and carried it home. so I didn't have to pay for shipping. Nice. So I ended up stopping at a booth. I had no idea that this booth even existed. It was one of those happy accidents. You're just walking around and something catches your eye and you go by and you're like, oh, cool, what's here? And it's actually where I met somebody that I've been following on YouTube for quite a while. His name is Mitch Rose. So I had the opportunity to pull Mitch aside after we had, had an initial conversation and whatnot. And I asked if he would be interviewed for our podcast, both in a short form at NAMM and for a future episode. So for those of you who don't know who Mitch Rose is the founder of the DIY Recording Studio channel on YouTube. And his channel is really great because he talks a lot about making your own equipment with DIY kits that are readily available from a lot of different vendors. So you can build something and have studio quality and equipment, and also equipment that is modeled after some things that are just unable to be purchased or prohibitively expensive to purchase for especially a home studio musician or producer. So DIY is a really great way to go. And when we get into the interview with Mitch, we'll get a little bit more understanding of that. But anyway, Mitch was at this booth for Z&H Designs. They're an outfit out of the UK.
Represent. Come on, boys.
Exactly. I figured you might like that, Ben. They're an outfit out of the UK. They do a lot of their designing in the UK, and then, of course, as most things do, I think things are assembled or put together in China and then shipped to various countries where they're then drop shipped. So I know that they have a distributor in Colorado for the States, obviously for the UK, and then for somewhere in Europe, they have a distributor. Anyway, their booth got a lot of attention, and I don't know if they're new or not. I haven't figured out if they're like new on the scene, but they got a lot of attention at NAMM for their setup. They have a number of pieces of equipment that are really good-looking pieces of equipment, and as well as you can test stuff in NAMM or at NAMM with headphones. I mean, it's
and a lot of noise.
It's kind of not a joke, but it's kind of silly to think that you're going to be able to really hear stuff that well with headphones. But I tried out some of their equipment, and I liked what I heard. I'll just say that. I liked it enough to say, hey, do you guys have a pair of these EQs? So I bought some EQs. Let's see here. The camera's not going to be very kind to this. I'll post a better picture of this.
500 series, are they?
Yeah,
500 series stuff. Yeah, so not
500 series.
Not these up here. I'm covering those up, but these are a pair of Soundtech EQs. So they're 500 series Soundtech EQs. They are intended to be a smaller version of their mastering grade EQ. Which I've used the Soundtech EQ by, I believe it's Amec, which is a brand of Plug-in Alliance now. They have a Soundtech style EQ, or I think it is the Soundtech EQ. It's fantastic. I use it on just about every mix. Not always. There's lots of EQs to choose from, but that's an EQ that gets a lot of use in plug-in form for me. So I was very excited to see a Soundtech EQ in 500 form. So
now you have some outboard gear.
Yeah, I added to my outboard gear collection. They cut me a slamming deal because they were the floor models, which I cleaned them up really, 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 really well with Lysol and everything. Lots of fingers were touching them over the course of those 4 or 5 days. So, I disinfected them really well, but they cut me a slamming deal right there on the show floor to pick a pair of those up. I couldn't be happier. So, yeah, NAMM is definitely a place where you can purchase stuff. And if you're a musician or a producer or a home studio owner or a professional studio owner, you should go there with, some money. and
take some money with you,
and an open mind, right?
I could get in trouble.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. There were plenty of transactions happening, whether they were paid or barter. I saw lots of trading going on. I saw lots of companies giving guitars to artists. I think there were a lot of sponsorship deals that were made at NAMM. I saw a lot of that happening. So it is genuinely a trade show, and it is the trade show of all pro audio and musician trade shows. It is fantastic. I can't say enough how important it was that I went. I didn't realize how important it was going to be until I got there and saw the magnitude of what NAMM had to offer and said, I'm so glad that I did this, and I will be back again and again and again and again.
Fantastic.
I think it is imperative for anybody, especially us home studio musicians and producers, because we don't get out much. We see each other on Zoom. We interact with a lot of our friends on the internet. But when was the last time you actually went somewhere and had a proper interaction with a professional, whether it's in a networking event or in a studio? Doing something.
Like a professional. I mean,
like
even
a professional, right? Like this is your day job, and you go somewhere to a physical place every day. When was the last time that any of us did that? Yeah, exactly.
Not very. I mean, we do it for work when we have to, but
when we have to. But music, for a lot of us with the day job, this isn't our primary job, so we don't get out very often, right?
Yeah.
So I think that especially for people who do it by themselves, they interact with people primarily online, this is the place to go and make new connections. And that is one of the major takeaways that I got in our conversation with our very first interviewee. So our very first interviewee, I interviewed 3 people. The very first one is Mr. Joe Gilder.
I've heard of that guy.
Yeah,
he does stuff online, right?
I ran into him just by happenstance. It was no. We were chatting before NAMM, and I asked him if he wouldn't mind stepping aside and recording a short, quick segment for our podcast. So I'm going to share my screen so that you, Ben, and Neil can see this, and then we'll ship this in on the final production so that everyone can see and hear this video. And I'll post all of these on our YouTube channel as well, so you can go back and listen to them whenever you'd like by themselves. You don't have to listen to this whole episode if you don't want. You can just go straight to the video and listen and leave a comment if you would, please. That would be fantastic. But
only nice ones.
Only the nice comments.
If you haven't got anything nice to say, just don't type anything.
Right, exactly. So, Mr. Joe Gilder at NAMM. Here we go. Hey, Nate here from Sound Discussion. I'm here with Joe Gilder at the 2025 NAMM Show. Say hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
So we've been hanging out and have taken away some really good bits of knowledge from some of the sessions we've been in, seeing artists, YouTube personalities. And we were in a session this morning with Rick Beato, Tim Pierce, and another gentleman that I can't remember his name. We'll edit this later. But Rick and Tim were talking about their beginnings in YouTube. It's no secret that Rick is older. He's in his mid-60s, and he started his YouTube channel in his 50s. Joe also has a YouTube channel, but he's not in his 50s. He's a nice young man. But one of the key takeaways that we both got from this is just do it. Put your content out there. What did you think about that, Joe?
Well, I saw between that talk that we went to, and then I went to one with Corey Wong and Mary Spender, who both are musicians but also do a lot of content. And it seemed like the theme of the day was create stuff, make stuff, and that includes putting it out there for the world versus like tweaking it forever and perfecting it. It was this idea of, yeah, you want it to be good, but just go ahead and start doing it. You'll get good eventually. was kind of the vibe I got from it.
Yeah, right. You know, the first one may not be good, and the second one may be a little bit better, and the third one better than that. And then 7 years go by, and now you've actually got, 500,000 YouTube subscribers, and the content is solid, and you're on a roll, right? But you don't get there until you put out that first one, or that second one, or that third one.
Yeah, and it's true with content. It's true with music. Like, Nate, was your first song amazing?
No, I think I recall your mix, or your critique of my song was, why?
That can't be what I
said. No, it probably wasn't that. But I remember walking away from that critique and thinking, yeah, this wasn't a good song because it didn't have direction or purpose, and it was just, my first attempt, and it didn't go well.
One of the things they talked about that's interesting is Rick specifically said he would, if he has an idea for a video or starts or shoots a video, he'll have somebody like his teenage son or a friend watch it.
Yeah.
And he'll just say, is this any good? Or he mentioned he asked his assistant, and he was like, yeah, it's great. And he's like, really? Okay, no, I wouldn't watch it. And so, like, getting that honest feedback was also a helpful part of the process. So I think you can't do that until you've made something, but once you've made something, getting honest feedback from a trusted source who's not just going to pat you on the back and say, great job, buddy, but is going to say, hey, that part didn't make sense to me, or that part was weird. Like, that's also a really helpful part of the process. If anything, I feel like it's a way to, like, speed up your flow and speed up your progress.
Totally.
Because you're getting, instead of having to figure that out on your own over 6 months, somebody says, hey, your vocal sucks. And you're like, oh, it does. Now that you say that, I realize what you're saying, and now I can go work on it.
Right, yeah, especially if you can help that person understand why it's not working.
Yeah.
And then they can hear that and contrast the two and say, yeah, okay, right, yeah. And that goes with anything. That goes with video content, music, poetry. It doesn't matter at all. Having honest feedback from a trusted source is really the way to go, and then putting it out there. Don't let it sit. Don't let it stagnate, because it's not doing any good sitting on your hard drive or sitting on a piece of paper in a drawer unreleased.
And you may think, oh, but that's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah.
That's the point, right?
But I heard a good quote the other day. You're either winning or you're learning. So, or I guess third option is you're doing nothing. And that's really the only option where you're losing. So make something, either it crushes or you learn something and you get better. It's a pretty good deal.
And then the next one crushes.
Yeah.
Right. Joe, what is your thoughts on NAMM? How's your experience so far?
This has been, I haven't been to NAMM since 2020, and I've gone several times before that, but this one is one of my favorites. Part of it is knowing people like yourself, running into old friends, but also just, there's a lot, I used to only go to the booths and meet the manufacturers, which is fine. You get to see the toys, but eventually all that kind of blurs together, and you don't care about seeing a piece of gear ever again. But they had a lot of good talks and like seminars and stuff that, for me, were really inspiring, and I learned a lot too. Plus, it's in Anaheim in January, which is amazing compared to Cleveland or Nashville in January.
Yeah, I left Cleveland in -6 degree weather.
That's not
just
good.
Not good at all.
It's not natural.
Yeah, no. I think NAMM is really great for anyone who wants to network, the opposite of collaboration online. Get in people's faces, meet them face to face, shake their hand, and network. I can't tell you how many of my heroes I've gotten to talk to today. Now, I'm not besties with them, but I've gotten to talk to them, and that is inspiring, and that has lit a fire in me to go home and create more. A place like this, a place like NAMM, where you can be amongst thousands of people who are just like you, that's powerful.
And the sheer number of people, too.
Oh, my gosh.
Just the fact that there are this many people that love music is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Like, even like any of the performances you've gone to, like the crowd is full of musicians. They're all tapping their toe to the beat. They're all like, that cool little riff they did. Everybody's like elbowing each other. Like, that was a really cool chord they went to. Like, it's just, it's cool to be reminded that, because making music can be really lonely. And reminding them, like, there's a world full of musicians that love making music. Yeah,
and you never know. You might meet someone and start a new collaboration across the world with them, and you'd be better off for it. All right. Thanks, Joe, for hanging out.
Yeah, man. It's been fun.
Appreciate it.
Of course.
All right. Yeah.
All valid points, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All valid
Especially
points.
the part where he's talking about, like, you have that friend or that the honest feedback. I have two best friends that, like, if I could send them anything and they're not going to be one of those that's just like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Good job, buddy. No, it's going to be, oh man, that sounded, when you hit those high notes, man, when you sang those high notes, it sounded a little strained and whatnot. It needs to be more open and what. So that honest feedback, having a friend or an acquaintance that will give you that actual honest feedback, that's important.
And I think you can, most of us have got, or hopefully most of us are lucky enough that have the other half who is brutally honest with us, because that's the job of being somebody's other half. But sometimes they're not into music, or they're not really bothered about content creation. And that's where if you can find the right community online, they are so valuable. One of the things that, we obviously all met at Home Studio Corner, Joe Gilder's Home Studio Corner. But the bit that I took away from Home Studio Corner is I've now got a group of friends across the world who, if I send them something, will be honest and come back and say, yeah, that's awful, Ben. Don't ever release that and put that in the bin and never talk about that again. Or they will be like, yeah, that's good. But, so I think being able to find that community that's one of the great things about the internet. And there's lots of communities out there. You don't all have to use Joe's, but that is one of the benefits of being a home musician in your own studio, and then being able to not only collaborate, but get that honest feedback from across the world.
Yeah, and finding that community is really important, whether it's online or in person, right? Having that community is really critical. And getting that feedback, that honest feedback, can be tough. That can be some real tough beans sometimes, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I've gotten feedback before that isn't great, and it's crushed me. It hurts. I thought it hurts. It really hurts.
But like you have to be at that point where you just got to stand back or sit back and just be like, okay, you know what?
Because if it's from someone you trust, then it's the truth. It doesn't. You might not like it, but if it's from someone you trust, then that is the truth. They're not saying it because they're trying to one-up you. They're not saying it because they're trying to put you down.
Hopefully not. They're not trying to put you down or keep you from, excelling and
exactly, or to keep you from continuing to do what you're doing. Like they're saying it from a place that's like, hey, this isn't great.
Rethink this. Yeah.
Rethink it.
Yeah.
And try again.
Hopefully people out there have that or are able to find that. And like Ben said, there's lots of communities out there online. And maybe in person, you live in a small town, so your friend base is small. The internet is a big, wide world place, for good or for bad. So I'm sure you could find
only good stuff happens on the internet.
Only good stuff happens.
Oh yeah,
totally. It's the purest of places.
Oh yeah.
That said no one ever. Yeah.
The internet. So
the lovely Joe Gilder. Yeah. Nice.
So the lovely Joe Gilder, that was really nice to hang out with him. And speaking of networking, Joe introduced me to a number of people that he knew that, he thought I should know. So it was really great to have somebody like Joe also say, hey, so-and-so, you should meet Nate because he does something that I think you might like. And that was really cool. On two levels. One, it validated, again, the reason why I was there. It validated that I'm doing something that has worth. And that can be really, really tough to see when you're sitting by yourself in your space and, you're sending stuff out into the void and you don't hear anything back, or what you hear back isn't great. And you're just like, why am I doing this? Why am I, I'm trying to make myself happy, but also, let's face it, if we're putting something out there, we want other people to feel what we're feeling. And if they're not feeling that, that can be distressing. And to be in a place like NAMM and for Joe to say, hey, Nate's doing something that you should, be aware of, was validating and helped me to see that, like, okay, I'm doing something. And it maybe, hopefully it's the right thing, right? And I'm going to keep doing this. So that kind of takes us into the next guest that that I interviewed for.
I mean, you're going to be
podcast.
doing well to top Joe Gilder, obviously, internet sensation Joe Gilder.
We need to have another episode of Joe Gilder on.
We do, and he's totally up for coming back. Absolutely. Nice. So, the next guest that we have is none other than Gregor Byerle from Presonus.
Nice.
Had a chance to talk with him. And this one was a bit of a lengthy conversation. This one clocks out at 12 minutes. So stick with me here. Yeah, this was a little of a long one. Gregor he's a great guy, and we had a lot to talk about. So let me share my screen here.
I'm going to get comfy, get a cup of tea.
Get comfy. And here we go. Gregor Byerle from Presonus at NAMM 2025. Hey, Sound Discussion. Nate here. And I'm sitting here with Gregor Byerle from Presonus.
Wow. Nobody's ever pronounced my name that perfectly in the States.
Well, hot damn.
Yes, indeed. You should be very proud of that because a lot of people tried and failed.
How are you doing, man? How's NAMM going for you?
I'm doing great, man. It's such a pleasure to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, likewise.
We've been working together for so many years at this point, and NAMM is just an overwhelming experience for me. I have to say, I don't know how it is for you, Nate, but my first NAMM was in 2020, just before the pandemic hit. And I remember a NAMM that was fairly struggling at that point, and it wasn't clear whether it would actually survive the pandemic. When you look at Musikmesse, which is the only comparable convention in terms of size in Germany, that went out of business very quickly. And then Fender was also pulling out of NAMM, and I thought, that's it, I'm never returning to NAMM.
And it disappeared from Nashville.
It did.
So people thought, that.
So it's a matter of time until it disappears here from Anaheim.
Right, yeah.
And I was kind of deeply saddened by that, because I felt at the end of the NAMM, had I known that this is my last NAMM, then I would have made the most out of it. Like, I still had all these things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
All these people I wanted to talk to.
I had wanted to go to NAMM for years, and then I saw it starting to disappear. So I was like, oh no, I'm never going to get to do it.
Right?
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. And then, suddenly, when I was absolutely convinced I'd never return to NAMM, the opportunity presented itself. And I feel like somebody who's gotten a second chance. And that changes the entire premise. Like, that makes everything so special because you never thought you'd experience it again.
Yeah.
And then you take nothing for granted, and that makes every moment very conscious and special. And that sounds super cliche, I know. But when you combine that with the fact that so many people have reached out to me over this week so far, and that in the last NAMM, nobody had any idea who I am.
Right.
It was quite overwhelming and also very hectic and also extremely rewarding, and I feel deeply grateful for it.
But over the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic and YouTube really ticking up, you've been very present with YouTube videos. You've been out there, and I think people have really gotten to know you over the last couple of years. And so now with NAMM being quote-unquote back, you're here, and people are finally getting a chance to meet not only you, but the people that they've been seeing on YouTube for years. And it's very exciting.
It appears so, Nate. Also, I haven't really noticed, or I did notice but underestimate, the amount of views that my older videos were collecting without me realizing it. The last time I checked my very first video on my playlist, it had like 20,000 views. And last time I checked, it was like 200,000 or something.
That's
like
awesome.
But I didn't realize it. And so I thought it's not going to be a big difference in terms of my own personal experience here now. Like, I thought I'd just walk here like anybody else again.
Right.
But it turns out that's not quite the case, as you can hear in my voice. It's quite sore.
You've been busy the last couple of days.
I've been talking more in the last 2 days than in the entire previous year combined, I think. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Oh, man. So,
put it in perspective.
yeah. So for the listeners, in case they don't know, I have been working with Gregor over the last couple of years. Just before the pandemic hit, he approached me to do some in-person meetups for the Presonus user groups, and then the pandemic hit. So we only did one live in-person meetup, and then it went online. And I've been doing it ever since.
You've been amazing.
I think thank you.
You are pretty sure the longest standing Studio One meetup captain, and the most successful one, and the most liked one, and everything. Like, people love you.
I'll take my medals now, if you
Take
will,
them.
please.
Take
Yes,
them.
thank you.
You're
right.
amazing at this.
Well, thank you, Gregor. I enjoy doing them, and it's so much fun. And that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to start the podcast, because I love listening to myself talk. Right? Yeah, I'm not gonna deny that.
I also really want to, get to know the man behind the meetup, right? I mean, you've really created an institution in this community, and you've done so with incredible consistency, and you were just...
Oh, well, thank you, man. That really does mean a lot.
I really think it's remarkable what you've done for the community, and naturally that sparks curiosity. Like, you want to get to know people with this kind of drive. You want to know what keeps them going, because most people would have probably stopped. Yeah, I'm sure you had a few frustrating experiences in your time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not always easy, but at the end of the day, it's rewarding and it's fun. And I think that you've experienced the same thing with your videos, with personas.
That's different though.
That's true. It is your employer.
No, but not just that.
Okay.
I think the feedback is also far less immediate. When you do your meetups, you talk to the people live, and they tell you how much value this brings to them.
You can get a quick response from people.
When I do the videos, they are sent into a void, into a vacuum. As
you
far as
have
I'm
no
concerned.
idea what people think.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
I don't have the time anymore to check all of the comments and stuff, and so I just assume it's helpful once it's sent out. Of course, I read all the comments as much as I can, but it also skews the perspective, right? Some people might complain about things and they post more often, and then you think, people are actually unhappy with the video, even though the majority might actually benefit from it. So what I'm saying is, I had no idea how much my videos help people use Studio One until I got here. And then all of this gratitude and all of this feedback happened at once.
Well, and that's the power of NAMM. That's the power of meeting people in person. Is you finally get to see and hear from the people in the void.
And that's the power of delayed reward.
Yeah.
Right? Like, often I ask myself, like, is this really helping anybody?
Or is it worth it?
Is this just a placeholder content? And then people start the conversation here with, do you have any idea what you've done?
Yeah.
That's quite a starter.
I've heard that line many times with other content creators.
And I've prepared for many things here. I've prepared for criticism, constructive criticism, harsh criticism, compliments, product questions, mostly product questions.
Yeah.
Nobody prepared me for the emotional encounters that I would have here.
That's
like,
awesome.
People feel like they know me. They do, probably, because I'm putting my heart out in these videos.
Well, yeah, I think that we see our content creator, we see people on YouTube, and we are drawn to them for one reason or another, and we keep watching their content because they relate to us. And we do feel like we know them to some degree. And, your ups and downs are felt, and your viewers can note that. And so to make a long story short, and I'm not sure what I'm saying anymore, I think that people do see you as a friend, a peer, and even though they've never met you, that doesn't matter anymore. That wouldn't have been the case 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But now,
overwhelmed me so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it is.
It was amazing. It was soul nourishing, rewarding thing I've ever felt.
That's cool.
It was also incredibly overstimulating at times, because people can be very passionate.
I'm sure.
And they've been waiting to talk to you, so they bring an energy that's hard to match.
Yeah, it can probably be like a little much. You're like, whoa.
But it's in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Really, I'm full of endorphins and gratitude and adrenaline that I didn't know you could feel without any help. So,
that's awesome.
And that's really just so special to me. And you can hear in my voice, I try to match the energy, and it's loud here, of course.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's, I love every single moment of it. So it's really special.
That's awesome. So I was talking to Joe earlier, and I asked him sort of what was the significance of a place like this in NAMM, and you kind of reiterated it as well, and that is getting with people and hearing from them in person. And that kind of fuels you.
It's a great question, Nate. Like, what is the real value of NAMM? And what's interesting is that my answer is now different than it would have been before this NAMM.
All right.
it's much more personal now. Right? Before I thought it's good for a brand, for the exposure, to show presence. I would have had a lot of professional reasons.
Sure.
Now I have a lot of personal reasons why NAMM is of such great value, because I've rarely felt so motivated and so fulfilled, and
I feel the same way. I'll tell you that. I feel the same way.
Tell me about it.
Sitting in some of these sessions and seeing Rick Beato or Tim Pierce, or I met Sylvia Massey, and like, how inspiring to meet your heroes and the people that you look up to, and the people that you feel like, oh, I'll never get there. I'll never get there.
Yeah.
But to see them and to get a chance to talk to them and shake their hand, they're just people.
So down to earth. Right?
So down to earth,
Incredible.
so kind. And it lights a fire in my soul, because now I want to go home and make some more music.
Yeah.
I want to keep pushing forward. There's so many days where I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I investing money in X, Y product? Why am I investing time in these things? No one's going to hear my mixes. No one's going to ... right? Mm-hmm. And it can be really easy to get discouraged and say,
Yeah, it's cynical.
and cynical. And it's so inspiring to see other people, so many people, doing the same thing as you.
And also that they don't even do something very different than you.
No.
It's probably stuff you've been already doing.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons why we started the podcast is me and the other two co-hosts, we were asking a lot of the same questions that other beginners had asked. And we said, well, why don't we sit down and talk about it? Because everyone's asking the same questions and looking for the same answers. Let's just have a conversation about it, instead of saying, oh, well, go search for so-and-so on YouTube. They'll answer your question.
But isn't it fascinating how when you compare the workflow of a top of the industry Grammy producer to your own, to Nate Kelmes' workflow, there's not much of a difference at all in the way you work. Isn't that crazy?
No, it's really not. We do the same types of things with the same objective in mind. We just have different equipment or a different space.
But the strategy doesn't...
The strategy is the same.
Almost. Isn't that surprising?
Yeah.
To me, that's very motivating. It's not like you're missing a ton of stuff to get to the same spot.
No, there's no magic that I'm
crazy?
missing out on. There's no secrets.
That's empowering to me.
It is. It really is. So I think that one of the biggest takeaways from NAMM is you come here and you get fired up and you're ready to go home and just keep doing it.
That's such a great summary. Yeah, you are so fired up, and what happens here just nourishes your soul.
Yeah, and I can't wait to come back next year. Gregor, thanks for hanging out with us. It's been an honor to meet you finally, and an honor to talk to you.
You're a champion of the community. I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for Personas and the people who are using it. I mean, everybody loves you for a reason, and it's been my pleasure.
Cry, man.
Really.
All right. Well,
now we're going to get a drink.
Let's go get a drink. All right. See ya.
See you guys.
All right.
That's cool.
He sounds like he's been talking a lot.
that was the second to last day. That was Friday, and his voice had just about had it by then. So yeah, he was tired and worn out, but pumped up. He could not have been in a nicer guy and in a better mood, right? Like one of my fears was obviously I think Gregor would have been up for a conversation regardless, but it's hard to have a conversation if you're exhausted and in a bad mood, right? And he wasn't. He didn't show it. So
yeah.
And
hats off to you for doing the meetups for so long. I hosted one pre-COVID, and it's hard work, man.
It is. It is and it isn't. I like to be very involved in my meetups. It's not just a moderator that sort of sits back and lets people, have free reign of the 2 hours. I like to keep it loosely structured so that we have things to talk about, and I really enjoy that. And it seems that the people that come to my meetups really enjoy that too.
Sounds like they love it.
I'll post a link. If anyone wants to come to those meetups, if you're a Personas user, but if you're not a Studio One user, we welcome people from all DAWs and workflows. You don't have to be a Studio One user to come to these meetups. They are intended for or designed for Studio One users to share tips and ask questions about Personas products. But We've had people that use Cubase or that use Pro Tools. They've come to the meetings and, we talk about general production and recording, and that stuff transcends any DAW. So anyone is welcome. And I'll post a link to the meetups in the show notes. Anyone is welcome to come and hang out and meet other producers and musicians from around the world. I mean, talking about networking, right? So
yeah, it's the whole point.
Absolutely. Neil, what did you take away from that conversation?
I like the fact that like he was talking about like it seems to me that like we're talking about professionals and like home studio people, but like it's almost like when you're there at NAMM, everybody's kind of on the same playing field, and like there's a respect for everybody that's there, and there's no like. And he was saying that like that the processes that Nate does for I can't say it as well as he did, but like for your producing of your music or mixing is the same no matter who you are.
It really is. And
music is music.
Music is music, and the tools that we all have available are the same tools that are available to, your favorite top shelf mixer or producer. We have access to all of those same tools, right? Especially in the plugin form. There's never been a time where plugins are more easily accessible and affordable. Even the most expensive plugins aren't prohibitively expensive compared to their hardware counterparts.
Yeah.
So, there's that. And really the only difference between top tier mixer and, any of us is this, how we perceive sound and how we process it. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, and I think we've touched on it before as well. I think that goes hand in hand with the end listener, whoever that is. If you're a musician, you're releasing your stuff on Spotify or Apple Music, or you're a content creator and you're putting your stuff on YouTube, no one cares how you got there.
Yeah,
no one is sat at home going, "Oh, did they use an SSL EQ there, or was it a Neve?" Nobody cares.
That doesn't sound like a distressor to me. So hard pass. Thanks.
Ben, I love that voice you do. Do that again.
Oh, the Brian voice. Sorry, Brian's. But...
look, nobody cares how you get there. It's only about what happens at the end. So if you can get the most amazing recording on a $150 acoustic guitar and a $50 microphone, and it sounds amazing. No, I mean, that's the end of that statement.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll come back to that point because that's a perfect lead-in for our next conversation.
You're welcome.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that was wonderful. I think the other thing too with being amongst all of these people at NAMM is you have an opportunity to talk to people. There were plenty of times where I might be at a booth standing next to somebody and you just start talking to them about whatever it is you're interacting with. And then bam, a conversation, is underway. And so many times where I'll talk to someone and they say, "Well, what do you do?" And I tell them in the back of my mind, you kind of downplay yourself and say, "Well, I'm just a home studio musician, or I'm just a home studio producer, or I'm just a ... But you know what? At NAMM, it doesn't matter. You're not just a fill in the blank. You are a producer. Yeah. You are a musician. You are a mixing engineer. And you leave out the word just, and man, that carries so much more weight. And there wasn't a single person that looked at me and said, Oh, you're just a home student. Cool. Bye. No, nobody ever said that in all of the conversations I had. And even when I had a chance to chat with Sylvia Massey, I sat down with her. I did not ask her to record a quick interview for this podcast. I probably could have, and she probably would have said yes, but I felt bad about taking up more of her time than I needed to. But she was a lovely person and so nice to talk to, so down to earth, so kind, and didn't at any point make me feel like I was lesser than because I'm doing this in my basement versus a fully decked out studio with top paying clients, right? There's only a few people in the world that have that opportunity to work in a top tier studio with top paying clients. That doesn't exist for 98% of this industry.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't. So the rest of us are in our bedrooms or in our basements or in our living rooms or kitchens or garages.
But we're still making music.
And we're still making music, and we're making it happen with whatever little or however much equipment and finances that we have.
Yeah.
So there's never been a time where there's anything really standing in our way. And that doesn't make you less of a musician or less of a producer or less of a whatever because you don't have an actual SSL console or you don't have...
You don't? You haven't got one?
I
thought everyone had one.
I ordered one at NAMM. They're back ordered for like the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that that's where this industry and musicians and everything is going to, where there's respect and appreciation for each other.
There was so much respect
that's
amongst
not
people
how
at
music
NAMM.
has always been, though.
No, but don't you think? I mean,
I'm
we're going
glad
slightly
that
off.
that's where it's going.
We're going slightly off track here because I think Nate wants to roll his next.
No, it's okay.
But don't you think that's because people like Billie Eilish and Phineas wrote and produced her first album in their bedroom? And yes, they probably did some stuff that they recorded before it went out, but essentially they wrote and produced that album in their bedroom. Mm-hmm. That bedroom producers are no longer, you're a bedroom producer. It's like, yeah, so's Phineas. So
it's no longer this like
look behind
stigma
me.
or this
It's a
thing.
bedroom.
Yeah,
It's a bedroom.
exactly.
Look behind me. It's not.
It doesn't matter.
It's an AI studio.
Only works for the video.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
not.
Nice,
So who do we
Neil.
get to hear from next?
Yes.
Nobody
Well-
wants to hear the three of us waffle on anymore.
So back to your point, Ben, about recording what you have, or recording music with what you have. If it's
Definitely.
a microphone and a 2x2 interface, do it. If it is a hardware channel strip and a U87, do it. But when it comes to recording, sometimes having slightly better equipment to track with is going to be better than having gobs and gobs of equipment to mix with.
Definitely.
And so that's what I talked about to some degree. Also talked about building your own equipment with Mitch Rose of the, let's see, what is his channel's name? It is the DIY Recording Studio on YouTube. I'll post a link to that in the show notes. And I had a chance to talk with him at the Z&H Designs booth where he was helping them represent their product and brand. That's where I ran into him completely by happenstance. Just my eye was caught on a piece of gear and I walked over there and bam, there's Mitch. So we struck up a conversation about building versus buying and what that is like and tracking to some degree through decent quality equipment to then mix in the box. So let's get this conversation queued up and we'll be on our way. Mitch Rose at NAMM 2025. Hey, Sound Discussion, Nate here, and I'm with Mitch Rose from the DIY Recording Studio. He has an excellent YouTube channel for all things DIY. I've come across it in my search for questions when it comes to building preamps and compressors, both 500 series and full rack. So, Mitch, lots of home musicians out there are scared of DIY, and they're scared of paying lots of money for stuff that's pre-built. So they stick with their interface, their inexpensive microphone, which does a fine job, and plugins, which are, expertly emulated, and they're supposed to do the thing, but we hear all the time about how hardware is so great, but then we see lots of producers and musicians staying strictly in the box. Mm-hmm. So building your own equipment doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be scary. What are your thoughts on building versus buying? When should someone build? When should someone buy? And where can they get started?
Yeah, cool. So my first thing, actually, I wouldn't mind going back to one of the other things you said about big level engineers and producers mixing entirely in the box. And the misconception there a lot of the time is actually they're missing the part where they don't tell you that everything was recorded and tracked through high quality microphones and high quality analog on the way in. Yeah. And then that allows them to do only in the box. if they were using your 2i2 Focusrite with a cheap microphone, I don't think their mixes would sound as polished without that hardware on the front end. So for anyone that wants to get into DIY for the first time, is thinking about it, or looking to get into hardware, let's say, you're ready to go into hardware when you feel that you've reached maybe a plateau in your ability to get a certain quality you might be chasing. So whether it be on vocals or bass, if you feel like you're not getting the tonality that you hear in records, you might be ready for hardware, like, because you're actually starting to hear that difference. To go DIY, you obviously need to learn how to solder, and that can be very scary. Most people are, a bit put off by that, but it's actually not that hard a thing to learn. I learned it as a teenager when I went through like a course at college, and then I didn't do it for years. I didn't solder. I soldered leads and stuff here and there, like when I did repairs, but just on nothing like major circuitry. Hadn't soldered for years, and then I had a project when I went back to uni where I had to make a microphone, and I got a mic parts kit, and I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. And I hadn't soldered in forever. It'd been years and years,
and they're not hard to put together.
Yeah, and no, if you're patient and you've got to get a good soldering iron.
Yes, you do. You need good tools.
Yeah, and you could watch a couple of videos for some techniques on how to solder like neatly. But if you take your time and you're patient, soldering is actually quite an easy thing to do. And it's actually a really fun thing to do.
It's almost therapeutic in some ways.
Cool. It's kind of like advanced puzzle building or something,
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, right.
So you got to look up the parts, and you've got to, figure out where to place them correctly and then solder them in. But on top of the benefit of doing DIY is obviously that you can get a high quality product like a Neve clone or a U87 clone or any of these bits of gear we covet for like much more affordable prices. There's so many good clone kit companies out there for mics, preamps, EQs, compressors, and you can save a lot of money by going DIY. And the quality from these companies is as good, if not sometimes better than actually, like, this is a bit of a taboo subject, but I'll go there. There are certain companies that do clones, and people in the industry reach for those clones before they get the original now. And I won't mention any companies, but like all of these circuit topologies have gone past patent. They're not patented anymore. Right. Everyone has access to what those circuits are, so it's very easy to recreate them. So there's no like voodoo magic. It's just that hardware does have a sound. Running electricity through transformers and through transistors does a thing that software still can't do.
Yep.
Because we're talking about this is the thing. We're talking about billions of electrons moving through a circuit every second. Billions. Like, how do digital ones and zeros compute that many electrons? They can't, So there's something still that digital can't replicate that analog does, and we're all chasing that. And it's just that the magic of analog is just that there's real electrical things, physical things that are going on, and there are limitations in software and computing. So like, I recommend everyone get into DIY, and I think the benefit I've found personally for myself, and I think you found as well, is that when you build these products for yourself, you learn more deeply how, say, a Neve 1073 works, or an API style preamp works, or an EQ, or a microphone. By putting your hands on it and seeing every component, you start to get a gist of, oh, this is why this sounds like this thing and this sounds like another thing, and then you more intimately know it. So then even if you are using plugins, and like I use plugins every day, people sometimes misconstrue me for like a hardware shill.
Right, you don't stop using the plugins, but now you have a better idea of the gain staging of the plugin and how it works, and
absolutely,
and you perceive things differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely helps you use those plugins way more effectively and just become a better engineer. And just really, at the end of the day, I think we've lost the idea of an engineer. If you were an engineer back in the 60s, you were an audio engineer. You had to be able to actually repair the gear.
Yeah.
And we've kind of come away from that, and that's okay. But I love the fact that we can go back and go, hey, I can be more of an engineer.
Right, your gear is inevitably going to break down, and now you have a better idea of how to fix it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's something tangible about turning a knob in the physical realm that clicking a mouse and turning a knob on your computer screen, it just doesn't feel the same. You don't have that same visual to tactile connection and auditory.
Absolutely.
There's something to that.
Yeah, I think that's that thing where we come across where we mix with our eyes when we're in front of a screen, and so when you're mixing with your mouse on a plug-in, you're very much mixing with your eyes.
Yeah.
Whereas as soon as we go tactile, we go into mixing with our ears very naturally. We stop looking at the screen, we're looking at our hands, or just looking away from the screen as we dial things in, and that makes a huge difference to how we listen and brings us back into listening.
Yeah.
And there is, as you said, that thing of touching something and then listening for the response rather than visualizing it anymore. So analog does have that benefit. It does allow us to kind of get back to listening more, I feel. And look, everyone at the moment, one of the biggest things people talk about is, I need a control surface. Why? Because they need faders at their fingers.
Yeah.
And it's for the same reason, right? It's because there's something that happens when you put your fingers on the fader and mix with that. I come from live. I mixed as a live engineer for like many, many years. And I have a console in my studio for that reason, because I want to touch stuff, you know?
Yeah, right. Anyway. Wow, that was great. So this is your first time coming to NAMM, right?
Yeah.
And your first time in America.
Yes. Right.
Man, welcome to America. Welcome to NAMM.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And thank you for spending a few minutes talking about DIY and hardware. It's been wonderful to meet you.
Yep.
Thanks for your time today.
Dude, thank you so much.
All right.
Nice. Interesting guy.
Yeah, really nice guy. It was a pleasure to meet him finally as well. Like, I had seen a number of his videos, and I had no idea he was there. Just ran into him. I'm like, oh, crap. I know you. That's great. So what did you guys take away from that conversation? What were your thoughts?
So I like, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Neil.
So I like I think DIY, you learn so much from DIY. Now, I don't build any equipment music-wise, but I built the computer that's down here.
That's DIY, man.
That is DIY. You buy all the parts, you do all the research, and you figure out what goes where and how to do it. And I'm happier for it because I spent less money and got a better computer.
Yeah.
And I've built it, and it doesn't have all the bloatware that most PCs come with, and I've made it my own, and
off-the-shelf computers. Ugh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I am the manufacturer of this computer. So
yeah.
But also, if something goes wrong, I am the manufacturer of this computer.
It is a double-edged sword, but it's a benefit. It's a benefit.
Absolutely.
Because if something goes wrong, you have a better idea of how to fix it, or you have a better path to upgrading.
Yes.
Right. Like a lot of those off-the-shelf computers, and specifically with Apple's, you can't upgrade components in those machines.
And
they're
that's
great,
why
they're powerful,
and
right. They're I don't want to say industry standard because that's not the right term, but they are ubiquitous in the music industry. Like, you go to any studio and they're gonna have a Mac, multiple Macs, right? Like, that's just how it works. And they're great at what they do. They're fantastic machines. They're fucking expensive.
Yeah. And there's some DAWs that only work on Apple. Like,
and there's some software that will only work on Apple. I don't think that should be the case, but it is what it is. But if you are a DIY person, you can obviously go and build a Hackintosh if that's still supported. I've been hearing rumblings that is not supportable anymore. So that might be over. But building your own PC is definitely DIY and a way to go. I built my own PC as well, and I built it for less money than what it would have cost me off the shelf. So
I know I've got a Mac, so
and you've got a Mac.
So that's the end of that.
That's all right. We still love you, Ben.
But you're right on the DIY thing, because one of the things that's always put me off, and it was interesting how you talked about it there, is even if you buy a kit, that's 700 million pieces, and you need to be able to solder. And I've gone, I can't do that. I mean, I have no.
Have you tried though?
I think it'd be cool to learn.
Yeah, I've literally created a blob of solder and, dropped it on the kitchen worktop, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, you don't want to do that. You want to have a nice protected workspace, whether it's a dedicated workbench. But
I was just having a really quick look while he was talking, and the company that he was talking about, they do their Neve 1073 clone is £370, like $500.
Yeah.
For a 1073. I know it's not 1073, but
and there are some really great videos that show head-to-head comparisons of an actual Neve preamp with those, and maybe they're not 100% spot on.
Close enough.
But they are damn close enough.
No one will ever know.
Again, no one's going to know that you tracked it through a clone and not an actual Neve.
Exactly.
No one's even going to know that you tracked it through a Neve clone. Like, no one cares. No one gives a shit.
So if that's the sort of color and tone you're looking for, $500, build yourself. I mean, how much is a 1073? I mean,
and you'll learn stuff.
And you'll learn stuff. And once you've done one...
It's addictive. You're going to want to do more.
I would imagine once you've done one, you can then do compressors or, anything you want.
There are more complicated builds out there for sure, but it's fun. I've built a number of pieces of audio gear. I have a number of kits waiting in the wings to be built. There's only a few times where buying something makes sense over trying to build it. And it depends on your own sort of threshold of pain. Sorting through a build of materials and, scouring sites like Mouser and DigiKey for parts and compatible replacement parts for things that are now unobtainium. You can build all kinds of stuff. People can build just about anything that they want, whether it's worth their time.
That's the thing, the time, the effort and the time and the wanting to put in that effort and time to learn it and to build it.
Yeah, it is a commitment for sure, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be anything that is like a huge commitment, right? It could be something that takes you a long time to build, right? No one's waiting on this piece of equipment. You're not trying to get it to market. You're having fun with it, right? And if it takes you 6 months or a year or 2 years to build, fine. A couple of hours a week, if that.
You're not building it for anybody but yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So don't let I get that time is important because all of our time is worth a dollar amount at the end of the day, right? All of our time is worth money, right? So whether it's the cost of a piece of equipment or the spread out in time investment into building a piece of equipment, you have to decide which one is worth it for you. But don't let that initial thought of, oh, I don't have time. I don't know how to solder. I don't ... Don't let that stand in your way. Take a look at it and do the cost benefit analysis of acquiring a kit and spending the time to build it versus shelling out the cash and having it delivered from Sweetwater, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fun. It's addictive. You learn stuff, and that can't be all bad.
No. Well, it sounds like your trip to NAMM was really productive.
To say it was successful is an understatement. It was soul nourishing, like Gregor said. It was fulfilling. It was enlightening and educational beyond anything that I could have, searched for on YouTube.
Amazing.
It's one of those things that like you don't know you're missing that piece of information until you hear it, and you're like, oh shit, that's a really great piece of information. Like you wouldn't have really thought about it until you're presented with that situation. So
yeah,
again, I'm going to reiterate that I think everyone should look into going to NAMM.
We should all go.
We should all go. And next year, maybe we'll all be there and we'll do an episode live.
That would be awesome.
At NAMM. I think that would
wearing
be pretty
T-shirts
awesome.
With Sound Discussion podcast written on
T-shirts
the front.
and hats.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty sweet. So
yeah,
we'll if that comes together, listeners out there, we'll let you know. And if there's anyone that is in the Anaheim area, LA area, or you're going to NAMM, we'll let you know next year as we get closer that we're going to do this if we're able to.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'd
Come
love
and
to
have
meet
some
you.
live guests.
Yeah, exactly. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to chat with you, maybe have you interview you for the podcast while we're at NAMM, because whether or not we all go, you know, we'll definitely try and do something like this again where we at least get some short form interviews. So anyways, yeah, that was my trip to NAMM.
Nice.
Worth every stupid penny.
Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely.
And I hope that next year you guys have a chance to go. So
we'll try and make that
if
happen.
we can make that work out. So
yeah, because when you said you were going to NAMM, I was so fucking jealous. So fucking jealous.
I didn't think, like, even me saying that I was going to NAMM was like, is this real? Like, pinch me. Like, is this... did I really buy this ticket? Did I buy the plane ticket? Oh, yeah, I did. I'm going to NAMM. Hot damn.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, it was really a genuinely cool experience. And whether or not someone has an opportunity to go to NAMM, I hope that everybody has an opportunity to experience something like that. You know, maybe it's a smaller show in your area, or you know, a community event meetup kind of thing where you can meet other people in your industry regionally.
Meet people in
something
person.
like that, right? But to walk away from an event and really feeling that connected to what you do and inspired to do more, that is an incredible feeling, and I hope everyone has an opportunity in their trajectory of their career to feel that way at least once, because it's so easy to walk away from your studio feeling defeated and crushed and saying, why am I doing this? But then to walk away from an experience like NAMM and say, fuck yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah.
I'm doing the right thing. Like, that is awesome. So we'll have another guest next month. Sorry, you had to listen to us talk for the last, I don't know, hour and 20 minutes. But
we'll have someone interesting on next time.
We'll have someone interesting on next time. But thank you for listening to Sound Discussion. We really appreciate that you're here. We're pushing through season 2. We have so many, okay, we didn't talk about this, and I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep, but I made a lot of really, really good connections at NAMM that I think will yield some really, 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 really good guests.
Nice.
For the podcast.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
I am not going to say who they are because I haven't gotten a bunch of firm yeses yet from people, but I'm working on it. And if things work out, I think you guys, the listeners, will be really happy. And it's going to lead to some really, really great conversations over the next year. So stick around for announcements. On top of that, we have a website that you can go to. So our website has all of our episodes. It has some bios on each of us, the hosts, and links where you can go and read more about us. And also, we have a sign up for a newsletter. Go to our website, sounddiscussionpodcast.com, enter in your first name and your email address, and we'll notify you when a new episode comes out. And we're looking at putting together some additional content that would only be available to newsletter subscribers. You're not going to get this content on YouTube by itself. You're not going to get this content specifically in the podcast. You're only going to get it if you sign up for our newsletter. So there. Give us your email address and we'll give you something cool.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay. Until next time, thanks for listening to Sound Discussion, and go make some music. Hi, and thanks for listening to this episode of Sound Discussion. You can find out more about today's episode by checking the description area here in YouTube or by going to our website, sounddiscussionpodcast.com. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our mailing list so you can stay up to date on the latest episodes, updates, and other content that will only be available to newsletter subscribers. And as always, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe here on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you and thank you for taking time today to sit in on our conversation and we can't wait to have you back again next month for another episode of Sound Discussion. Did I buy the plane ticket? Oh yeah, I did. I'm going to NAMM. Hot damn.